Welcome, listeners, to episode 19 of Future Secured. So joining me today is Jason Murrell, and we have a special guest, Jacqui Nelson, CEO of DekkoSecure, a leading innovator in cybersecurity, providing cutting-edge solutions for law enforcement and government agencies. So Jacqui's here today to share the story of DekkoSecure's remarkable growth from a small Australian startup to becoming the trusted partner of choice for law enforcement agencies across the globe. I can still remember one of my first, probably 2 or 3 months at AusCyber, chatting to Jacqui and her team about their products that they had at the beginning of their journey, and now to see them basically exporting and working with law enforcement agencies all around the world. It's an amazing journey you guys have been on. So I'm super excited for this episode. So let's dive in. And Jason, over to you to throw in the first question.
Wow, Tommy, you just nailed that in one hit. That was beautiful, mate. I love it. That was the best one ever. Hey,
It does happen.
yeah, Jacqui, thanks for coming on because, we sort of joke about being part of the Australian startup mafia. I think all of us, the sort of first crew, and we've had a few on here, right? So we always look to support. Yeah. No, I remember when we were sort of doing cyber aware and you guys at DekkoSecure and stuff, and it's been a long journey, and I think one of the things we wanted to sort of talk about is actually your journey more specifically, because I think I actually did a post this morning just about this. There's a really good article Yolanda's done in the AFR on startups, and I think it comes out on Friday. But yeah, you can click the link in my post about it because this is the thing, and I'll harp on about it because it's just an absolute passion of mine. I started my first startup, in early 2000s, and that one listed eventually on the ASX, but the road to get there is anything but smooth. It's like a roller coaster ride where they haven't built the tracks most times, especially on the way down. And, I wanted to give people a real feel for what you've done and sort of how you got to where you are now. So can you sort of take us back in time, maybe sort of before you started Dekko, what you were sort of doing before and how that sort of came about? I think it's a really interesting story for the people.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Jace. Yeah, there's certainly a lot to dig in about. And, we have been kicking around for a long time. It seems like sort of its own lifetime, actually, in itself. But, I kind of like to think about it. And I recently was on a plane, which I spend a lot of time on at the moment. And I watched there was a documentary on JFK. And, his compelling part about, I think, when they first put Neil Armstrong on the moon was we didn't do it because it was easy. We actually did it because it was hard. And I think at that point
also,
in time,
Jack, just quickly, can I just interrupt you there? Don't tell anyone how that actually ends because I don't think many people know what happened to JFK in the end.
No, probably not.
Spoiler alert, right?
Spoiler alert. Right. Yeah, thanks for that because I might have actually given it away.
Yeah.
But it's the truth, right? Like building anything is hard. Building a cyber company seems to be next level. And I have built businesses in the past. It's no, it's no secret that I don't come from a cyber background, which is pretty unusual in the space. Most of my fellow founders and CEOs are actually deep cyber people. So I had come from a finance background. I was a trader back in the day, worked in London on the trading floor. And that gave me the opportunity to actually transition into an investment, into an investment mindset. So I started investing in some tech companies because that was a particular area of passion. And I met the DekkoSecure team. This was back in probably 2016 now. And I was incredibly impressed with both the founders, the premise of the technology, and make no mistake, at that time when the first round of investment happened in Dekko, there was no product. It was a piece of kind of raw technology solving a very particular problem. So here we are in 2024. It's a fully developed product, SaaS solution, and as Tom alluded to, being sold around the globe, as they say, an overnight success that takes 25 years.
Yeah,
so it's great. But I think in the world of cyber, I think I feel quite privileged because to be able to come and lead a cybersecurity company with very deep tech like Dekko has, you don't get to do that, and you don't get the benefit of being able to just look at the commercialization strategy unless you know that you have got really solid deep tech and people that are very good custodians of that tech. So in that way, it's almost like a little mini fairy tale. And I do remind myself of that every day. And of course, we as a team often reflect on that. And I think part of our success has been that we've had the benefit of bringing, in a very small team still, a very different set of, of skill set together. So, yeah, so that's basically it. So I joined the team in 2017 officially. I'm happy to say that the very first person, apart from the two tech founders who are very deep inside the tech, I brought Alex Lyons along with me. I found him as a recent grad from university, and I think from IBM actually. He'd been working on the Westpac counter at IBM. We found ourselves in the back of a taxi one night and I said, "Hey, I'm in this startup, right, Alex? I know you're a really smart kid and I know you know a lot about cyber. Do you want to come along and join?" He said, "Sure, I'll come and have a chat." And now Alex is one of my key people. He's our senior solutions engineer here today. And it's so nice to have him, grow up with us, and we've worked together on building the solution that we take to market. That was a very long answer to a short question.
Yeah. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for Jacqui being on the show, and
we're all wrapped up.
Next time.
Well, it leads to the next question I've got for you. And so there's all these cybersecurity products out there in the market, but zero knowledge end-to-end encryption is what DekkoSecure is. So tell us a little bit about what it is, why it's different, and how it protects.
DekkoSecure primarily is a secure communication and collaboration platform, and we work with organisations, and predominantly in the law enforcement and government space, we're very focused on working with organisations that have highly sensitive and confidential information. Yeah. Now, those organisations understand and know that as they start to move that data up into the cloud to work on it or to be able to share it, there are some inherent risks associated with working in the cloud. Fundamentally, the zero knowledge security model that DekkoSecure is built on allows organizations to move their highly sensitive information to a digital environment in the cloud with the complete guarantee that that data can never ever be accessed by anybody other than the authorized and authenticated users. So end to end, at each end of the sharing, people can get access to it. But fundamentally, the zero knowledge security model means nobody in the middle can ever access the data. It's a new frontier in driving data-centric security. We're starting to hear more and more of it emerge. And, back to what I said earlier, Tom and Jason, at the beginning of the DekkoSecure journey, this technology was this zero knowledge technology without a front end and a product. And back in 2016, it was actually ahead of its time. We knew there were things like GDPR and regulations around privacy coming down the line. We knew that, it was risky working online, but did we have any idea that we were going to be, facing the threats that we do today? So back then we didn't even know that it was a zero knowledge security model. We just knew that it basically guaranteed that nobody could ever access the data. And of course, the zero knowledge, we didn't actually invent that term. As the deep tech and the mathematicians will know, zero knowledge means something quite different in maths. But the zero knowledge security model talks to this truly guaranteed protection of data that obviously is delivered via end-to-end encryption, modern day end-to-end encryption that's heavily based in math. So I guess that's the correlation.
Yep. Yeah, and I think and this goes to the point you've mentioned a few times, and this is something I sort of want to sort of illustrate for people, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people get with startups, is you actually almost always start off with an idea that evolves and you have to pivot, especially in cybersecurity. And you mentioned cyber is difficult. And one of the main reasons is because it's such a fast moving area, right? Because the attack surface changes all the time. There's different methodologies and ways of actually going and doing things. And so as it evolves, you as a company have to evolve and you have to be nimble. And I think watching you from afar, or, knowing you sort of closely, but seeing as you pivot, you see it happen with a lot of side businesses. You actually have to move.
Yeah.
When things like zero trust come in, and when new regulations come in, and when things pivot, you have to move with the market. And I think to survive in cybersecurity, the main thing you need to know is that you have to be nimble. You have to be on your toes. It's not like an accounting process. You mentioned finance. I come from a finance background as well, so I used to do financial planning, and so accounting and superannuation, all these things. Superannuation will change, but the tenets of the underlying basics of of accounting don't change, right?
No.
The Dutch merchants
Fundamentals
who
are
set
the
it up
same.
in the 1500s, they're the same, right? But yeah, cybersecurity moves quickly. So what were the biggest changes you guys had to make? I think for everyone out there, what changes sort of caught you? Because you go through periods like I've done where you think we're out here, we can't go any further. I don't know if you guys hit that wall once, twice, or three times, but I've hit it many times. What were sort of the biggest roadblocks? What were the biggest pivots? And what have you sort of learned from that as you've gone along?
Yeah, interesting. Interesting question. And one of the things that I think was the hardest thing for us, and this is a big part of the DekkoSecure story, and certainly the story that I'm very happy to put my hand on my heart and stand in front of our investors and tell them, is that when we first came to market, our solution was actually too mature for what organizations need, purely and simply because we didn't have the understanding of the threats that they weren't current, and they weren't necessarily as evolved and coming down the line. So as we started to get a little bit of traction, and it's no secret that we actually had the opportunity to take that piece of technology and actually build it with a real live customer in the law enforcement space. That was everything, because the learnings in that, they're priceless. You just can't pay. You can't pay any amount of money, and it's very hard to engineer. If I had tried to do that again, it would probably be very hard to replicate. And so a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time and actually identifying the right problem and digging in. So as we started to build out the solution, delivering security, as we all know, can very often be a disabler. Yeah. Now, our charter was never ever compromise on security. So that was, we would sit in the boardroom, and all the things that customers would come and ask us to do, we'd say, all of them, we'll take them on board, but this is the line in the sand, and this is where we know the conversation ends. Yeah. So we built the solution with a law enforcement agency who were obviously 100% focused on security. So it was kind of easy, in that sense, to build a solution to work for them. But obviously you need more than one customer. So as we started to branch out from that into their stakeholders, sometimes the limitations of our security made it difficult for adoption in certain agencies. So we're a web-based, cloud-based piece of technology, nothing to download. In the security world, that means a lot. When it comes to organizations needing to adopt, scale, and control this solution, that was not a perfect solution. And lots of times we had conversations of, could you do this? Could you do that? And I had to face these customers and say, it doesn't even matter whether you're prepared to pay me to make that change or not. We can't do it. It is fundamentally against the principles and the values of our company. And that was hard. That was hard. We were really fighting to stay alive in those days, Jace. We were, part of my job as the CEO is to make sure the company never runs out of money. That's your job, right? And fortunately, we have an incredible investor pool, and 80% of my investors have been here from the beginning. We call them long suffering. We're very grateful to them, but they really believe in our mission and they dig in with us. But every time I face them, I take it seriously, and I have to be able to stand in front of them and justify and validate why we're doing what we're doing. And so I can say it was hard, back to the JFK thing. It wasn't easy. It would have been much easier to go, don't worry about, we'll just turn zero knowledge off over here, or we'll build a control so you can decide to dip in or dip out of the security. We made it hard for ourselves, really, in the short term. But boy, is it coming back. Is it coming back round to us now? And that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? That sometimes the chance to get cash is sometimes so enticing for businesses that you break your moral code in some ways, or you do things and you try and change your business to suit in the short term, but in the long term, I'd had that situation with the Starwood whiskey business. When
Yeah,
we were cash tight, I said to David, I said, we should be doing some gin or some vodka or something like that, to try and get some cash flow. And he goes, no, we're going to be just a whiskey business. That's it. We're not going to go into anything else. I'm like, but I could just set up in the corner of the thing down there. I'll use a different address. I was like, because it was my money on the line, right? A lot of these cases, and you're
yeah,
sort of like,
totally.
when you're putting houses and stuff on the line, you just don't want to see it all fold. So it's good when you can hold course. And I think that's a good lesson, I think, for a lot of people out there, is if you can hold course and stay true to your values and the core tenet of what your business is about, that's actually going to be better in the long run if you don't fold. So, yeah, I think that's a
Yeah,
key
and I
thing.
think, Jason, cyber, it's different, right? Because I could
Mm,
look and I could sit and we could sit at the boardroom table and say, what's the one thing that will kill our company?
mm,
And we all know what that is.
yep,
Um, so that, in a way, it's easy to dig in and it's easy
mm,
to sell that value proposition. When you're in a
yep,
market where there's lots of shiny new ways to make money, um,
mm,
you know, that can be very enticing. But
yeah.
yeah,
And
a
cyber
breach
can catch
is
you that way
sensible.
too, because I think sometimes you can brand extend on cyber and actually cause yourself some issues there as well. So
Hmm.
there's a difference between pivoting and staying within your lane and pivoting just to go, there's a new shiny object out there as well. So
Well, we
that's
did it.
sometimes, and you talk about AI, right? Like AI is that thing now where a lot of
Yeah,
people are going, we'll use AI within our cyber thing, but are you
just
really?
because the world expects to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's that's something you got to be careful of. So I sort of want to be, sort of putting caveats in here as we do when we do these podcasts, is that
Mm.
you got to be aware of these things, and sometimes they can be quite enticing for you. And you go, we should really be doing that, or yeah, that's the cool next gen thing we should be doing, whether it be AI or anything like that. But if you stay true to your core and what you're about, which I think you guys have done, which is a credit to you guys, that's something that's a key lesson, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. That's what we did do at the security level. But let's not forget that I did get excited. In fact, all of us, as the board, got
Mm,
excited during COVID. Yeah.
mm, mm,
So, what was happening during COVID? So, we have a secure web-based platform. We have our R&D. We have
mm,
very deep tech capability. And we had one of our customer sets say, we know there's a problem with video conferencing. You guys should
mm,
build video conferencing.
mm,
So we did. And that comes back to the just because you can doesn't mean you should.
mm,
We did ask ourselves that. We still dug in and we did it. And we thought
yep,
we were going to, we never thought we were going to take over Zoom, but we
mm,
thought we had a really good value proposition stacked up against Zoom because nobody wants to be Zoom bombed. That there was,
mm,
it made sense. It was
yep,
shiny. We had the security, should we have done it? Probably not. Is it
mm,
the least used product in our platform? Is it a loss leader? Will it always be a loss leader? Probably.
mm.
That was 2020. Here we are 4 years later. People are starting to use it, but
Mm.
really they could have lived very happily had we never built
Yeah,
it.
but I think Jacqui, that's the other thing is too though. I've done more stuff ups. I think I use the F bomb
Mm,
usually with that than I've actually done successes. But
of
people only
course.
want to talk to you about the success of it.
Yeah,
But you got to try stuff still too, right? If
that's
I'd
right.
rather have a crack at something, I'll never die wondering.
Mm.
Like I'll always
No,
have a go at it, and if I fuck it up, then it's like, oh well, just wasn't meant to be, wrong time, whatever. But also conversely, sometimes you can look at an opportunity like that, and it can actually work out because, and it's not to say that won't work out in the future because of this end-to-end encryption thing becoming more important and stuff like that. We see with Telegram and these other things. Obviously, there's elements of it in other areas, but yeah, sometimes you can be too early. I was way too early with green and remediation and businesses back in the early 2000s, right? Way too early.
mm.
If I had those businesses now, they'd be massive. So it can sometimes be a timing thing. It can be something you can see something in the market, but just sometimes the market's not ready. It doesn't mean it won't be in the future, but yeah, just not for
But
now. But
that's
I
right.
better
And
hand back to Tom, or we'll never we'll just keep going. And
yeah, go,
Tom's just going
Tom.
to go.
Sorry.
What am I even here for? Yeah, sorry, Tommy.
Oh no, that's all right. And look, I think both of you are absolutely right. The lessons that we learn are through the mistakes and the failures. Successes don't really teach us the same kind of thing. Look, I love the way we're kind of riffing around this kind of startup journey. So Jacqui, you've made a notable progress in the US and Canadian markets with law enforcement agencies. How do you approach this kind of growth and coming out of Australia? It's something that really challenges, and not a lot of Australian cybersecurity companies actually make it and able to do this. So I imagine there's a lot of lessons that have been learned and a lot of hard work there. So if you could share that journey for us, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So look, and let's not overstate it here. We're not an absolute success in the US yet. We're certainly laying down foundations there, and I believe that our strategy is right, and I believe that there is work for us to do in that market. And I know we sit here in Australia, and I know it's very difficult for us to sell into government, and I know it's hard to get funding and all of those things. And of course, the US is very often painted as the happy land where we can all go and grow up very quickly and raise lots of money and scale and all of those things. So, was that part of the attraction? Of course, we all talk in startups about, the US being the ultimate, but the journey was quite sort of deliberate for us. So from our and of course, the secret is I actually met with a CEO of a very large listed company the other day, and we were talking about this absolute point about niching. So if you want to expand, you really have to niche. And the tighter the niche is, the better. And sometimes it's hard because you go, oh, but come and look over here. You can help us over here. And I've had to be really disciplined and say, no, that's not what we're going to do. We know, and we have proven here in Australia, that the law enforcement market and particular channels in the law enforcement market are where we can get in, do our best work, and stay there, yeah, and scale and kind of just meld into the background. So we then ended up in Canada because of our Australian connection. So we got introduced to an agency there, and we found a really nice niche there, and we've done really nicely in Canada. And of course, from Canada, it made sense to go and scope the US market. So when we're in the Canadian market, they do a lot of sharing, and because we work in particular channels, and then they're law enforcement channels that all kind of work very closely together. We knew in the US that they would have the same challenges. So I said, okay, great, let's go and have a look. So I really invested in just going and having a look. Yeah. So carved out X amount of money. Let's go and set up trade shows and just see what the market has to offer. But I knew what I was looking for, Tom, right? And I think that's the secret. Had I not have known what I was looking for, and I always think about it, can I realistically stand in front of my investors and tell this story and have it make sense and defend everything that's going to happen to it? So that's kind of my litmus test. So I knew that if I go and scope this market and I find the problem, then I can justify writing the strategy paper and going after it. So I did. Alex, Mehmet, and myself spent pretty much 18 months in the US on planes, in like 3-4 day turnaround sometimes. It was brutal. But if I really wanted to work out whether we were going to be successful, I knew that was what we had to do. And we found the same problem there that we found here and in Canada. So then it was about how we're going to execute the strategy. So the strategy, and then that's been the last 9 months. And now when I go to the US, I'm building a team there that can execute that strategy. But law enforcement, fortunately, and once again, there's a lot of good fortune in this. When you pick the niche, if you really resonate in that niche, they actually sell to each other. And so, maybe we got lucky in the niche. If I'd picked healthcare to go to the US, goodness gracious, the market's huge. The opportunity is huge, but where do you even start? So I think that helps. I think it helps to be really, really clear about the problem you're going to look for, and then working out the best way to find it, and then coming back and writing the strategy retrospectively. So that's it. But we're not, but we're doing it.
I just dig into a little bit of what you shared there, and that was, you went around and you were basically, the three of you were trying to discover if there was the opportunity there in the market. So what were you looking for?
So we were looking for a particular channel around sensitive and highly sensitive and protected level information where law enforcement agencies knew the risks of doing things online was too risky. And so they were still using USBs and hard drives to deliver highly sensitive information. Sounds so simple. And actually, it is really simple. And so that was the questions. And it's like, if they go, oh no, we go, okay, bye, move out of the way, next. We had to be so disciplined. And somebody come, oh no, but we've got a problem in, license plate record storage. No, keep moving. Might come back to that, might put a little sticky note on it, but absolutely not now. So, we had to get really clear about, because it's about resources, right? We're a little Aussie company. We've got our tech team here. So we have to make sure that as we find these opportunities, we can actually show up and deliver. And I think that's the difference. And Jace, you touched on it before about being small and agile. A lot of time you find a fair amount of pain because agencies are trying to navigate these conversations with big tech vendors who probably could build the capability if they wanted to, but are they agile enough to do it? Can they dig in? Can they, most of our conversations are not about our product. They're about, what problem do you need to solve? That's where we start. Tell me the problems that you're facing on a daily basis. Talk me through where it really starts to annoy you, cost you money, justify it, and then we narrow in from there. And it's very easy to work out whether we're going to fit or not. So that's kind of how we do it. Easy, I think, when you've got a small problem. You're solving a small problem.
Look, it's very interesting. I think, like discovering that pain point, that being focused on the niche, being laser focused on that kind of niche. I mean, at Murphy Group, when we speak to a lot of cyber people and we start talking to them about their brand journey, one of the things is they literally are, we've got everyone's got a digital platform, therefore everyone's our potential customer. And that seems to be right where they get into a lot of trouble. So that laser focus, I think must have made a massive difference. So then you've turned that into a strategy. So tell me a little bit more about how that then becomes a business strategy.
Yeah. So, so the strategy is, okay, that's our market. Yeah. Now we know what our market is and what they're trying to solve for. What's the best way for me to access that market? We know law enforcement people don't trust anybody. I mean, they don't. Yeah, well, they don't. They don't trust outsiders, the law enforcement people. So who do they want to buy from? They want to buy from law enforcement people. So who's going to sell my product? Law enforcement people. So that's basically it. So then my whole strategy is engaging through law enforcement networks in the United States. So we're members of the FBI and AA, we're members of IACP, and that's where I employ my people. So we invest a lot, we double down, we support, we show up with koalas and make Vegemite toast in conferences, and then almost
how's that go down over in the US?
Someone thinks we're going to set the smoke alarms off, and then we give them So it's about being creative, but at the end of the day, people will be lured to us, but they want to buy from Americans, and they only want to buy from people they trust. Yep. So that's basically the strategy. So we've got a guy in Sacramento, we've got a guy in Utah, and slowly building out the team over there, and a guy, of course, up in Canada, in Ottawa, and they're laser focused. Yeah,
I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Yeah, you got to get people that are trusted in any network, I think, and that's where a lot of companies, just say if they work in defence, you might be an Australian company who's got a defence, but when you go to the US, first pick a beachhead where you're going to start off with, right?
Yep.
And then find people that are trusted within that network that they're going to deal with, that can then open those relationships, because the rapport the trust and everything like that is one of the key parts of your business that you need to get
Absolutely.
right. And especially when you're expanding. So a lot of people in Australia, where they do fall over is they'll go to a market, but they'll only be able to go there part-time. And if you're only part-time there, especially in America, they really want to know who the big wigs are in the business. They need to be dealing with the CEOs. They need to deal with the top end, especially when they're starting out. You can then start to hand that off as you get more established. But to start off with, you got to be talking one-on-one as the founder or as the top line person in the business directly to them. And you got to be there. You can't be doing long distance calls or going there for a couple of weeks or a month at a time and then coming back for a couple of months. You've got to really set up camp there to get established and find that beachhead in that area where you need to be. So they're good tips.
We set up a Delaware company, so we're a registered company there, so we can do business there. And the guys that I employ are very, very senior. So you're absolutely right, Jason.
Yeah.
They've come through the FBI National Academy, which is really collegiate, really tight, very prestigious. They've got both the credibility and the expertise and the trust in spades. So
that's key. And I think that's a good lesson because that's where people fall over because they go, oh, look, we've got a great product and all that. It just doesn't seem to be taking. And that's usually the reason why, especially in America. It's very
because people don't buy products. Unfortunately, people don't buy products. They buy solutions to their problems.
Correct. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a change in language that can kind of make a difference. Yeah.
Now, also with you, what are the plans sort of going forward? Like, there's from what we already know, you've kicked a few goals, and there's some that you can sort of disclose and some that you can't. But what does the sort of roadmap look like for you guys for the next 1, 2, and 5 years sort of time? Where are you sort of heading?
Yeah. So. Very, very focused on our home market here in Australia. Not for a moment is our US Canadian strategy mean that we want to transition and be a US company. We will have a US company set up that is part of the DekkoSecure Australian story, and we will never abandon our roots here. We do a lot of work in law enforcement and government and national security here, very passionate about it. We've worked really hard to win the business, and we matter to them and they matter to us. So Australia first, we do very well in the States. In the states here in Australia. We are starting to move across into federal, and just this week we won our very first Canberra-based federal tender.
Congratulations.
Thank
now,
you.
Tom will put confetti and streamers all over the video for you. I don't remember all these fireworks and stuff going off. So that'll be post-production.
I always like the balloons. Yeah.
Okay.
But so that's great. It's hard. So I guess the story to that is there's hope. It is, we know cyber is Australian cyber companies, it's very difficult to get the attention of federal government. And so this particular win means a lot to us. And I think it says a lot about the sentiment in Canberra. I mean, we hear a lot about them wanting to buy sovereign solutions, but it's equally as hard for them as it is for us. I honestly believe, we've got to,
got to make that easier. Yeah, it's both ways. Yeah, it's both. Right. I agree with you. And that's the thing is that the government say the right things, and the thing is the actions are starting to follow now. And you guys are a classic example of that, right? That this is happening more so now. And the fact is that, like Tom was, helped organise a launch when we did the Australian Cyber Network a few weeks ago in Canberra. Actually, it's 2 weeks ago since at the time of recording this. And one of the key things is they're very much, and Andrew Charlton, fantastic guy, and Michelle McGuinness and the team there actually, they're trying to help the rubber meet the road, but that's that part, right? How do we make it easy on both ways? And we really need that conduit between to really connect up the ecosystem and government so there's a better understanding. And so that's part of what we're, as a side thing, and Tom's assisting with the Australian Cyber Network. That's what we're looking to do, right? Is because the market has matured and we are in a different position. We need to make sure that's a lot clearer, but it needs to work both ways, right? You need to have the both sides speaking the same language. Like when you sell to law enforcement, you understand the language of law enforcement, you understand their struggles intimately. So when you say, this is what we do and this is how it helps you because we understand your business. If we've got a solution as cyber people, we need to be able to articulate that exactly the same way to government, to say, now, as a government agency, we understand you have these issues. And look, I'll just say this as a message for anyone in any business: understand your customer fully. You need to understand, you need to be in their shoes and you need to be in their boots and understand what it feels like to be them. Often we sit back and go, oh, they didn't buy, and it's probably because they didn't understand, or you don't understand them. Any business or anyone I see successful, they understand their customer intimately and they make it so they go, I know you have all these pain points. I want to remove that for you. This is how we'll do it. Right. Yeah. And we understand this is your budget and this is what you want to do and this is what you want to achieve. And here's how we do that and help you achieve that. And we take these things off your plate to make it easier for you to do what you're good at and not have to worry about this. But this is, again, this is what we've got to change. Is Australia's got to get more mature as a whole country in startups, not just cyber, but cyber in particular. We talk a different language and we've got to get on the same page.
But the other thing is, the thing, to dig in, everything that you said, I completely agree with, Jason. Both sides need to kind of be more committed to making it easier to work together. But one of the areas that I find really tricky to navigate is the panel structure, and that seems to catch a lot of Aussie companies. I've been caught out that way, and so that's the area that I think the government, we were told we had to be, this a while ago, we had to be on a particular panel. So, great, okay, this is good, and the panel's closed. How long's the panel closed for? Indefinitely. Well, come on. That's really, and look, they're the kind of roadblocks that have to be fixed, and there has to be more transparency, because that lots of companies will go, well, oh God, I haven't even got a chance if I'm not even on that panel. Well, then make it easy to be on the panel, or at least be transparent about the processes for the panel and what do companies have to do to be on there. And you're right, if the government's serious about sovereign, well, then make sure that there's a fair share of sovereign companies on those panels.
And to that end, actually, and that sort of brings me, when you were talking about America and sort of coming home, part of the strategy is that we're looking for sovereign solutions, but also to help our neighbours as well. So have you done much in the region? Like if we talk APAC more generally or more specifically, and also in the UK, is that something that you guys have sort of explored or done much in so far?
Yeah, so not really in Asia Pac, and it's not because I don't think there's work to do or that would be a market that I would like to explore. It's more with limited resources as a small team, you kind of just follow the path of least resistance. So in the US, interestingly, Canada, into the US, into the FBI and AA channel that we work into, interestingly, we've popped up in Europe now.
Okay. So like MI5 or something, like with the UK? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, I was just in Oslo at the conference. I went last year to the conference in Belgium, and basically the whole of the EU were like, we're nowhere near going to the cloud. We're so far away from it. If you're a cloud solution, don't even bother. But because this is part of our network, we keep showing up there, and Canada and Europe kind of have similar needs. This year in Oslo, we sponsored again, and we went back to continue some of the conversations, thinking it was going to be a really, really long tail, and it's still going to be a really, really long tail. But the sentiment and the change in sentiment in 12 months is extraordinary. So we will run 2 POCs in the EU in the next 6 months. Now, it doesn't mean they'll turn into customers, and it is very early. But if we can be there and as an Australian company, starting to help these agencies in Europe understand that you can move to the cloud in a totally secure way, that's easy to use, easy to scale, minimum touch, drives deep efficiencies through your business, we might be able to start to help inform something little. So no doubt there's work we can do on every continent, like every cyber company, but I'm following the kind of path that's laid out for me.
You've spoken about investors a fair bit here. Is there an exit strategy for you guys? Like, like always when I start a business, I'm wondering, this business would be one that would be acquired by someone bigger. This is a business I think we'd exit onto an exchange. Well, if you can divulge that, what's the sort of and in talking about the future, what's the sort of roadmap from that sort of point of view for you as a team? What do you talk about there?
Yeah, so look, we've got a lot of work to do. We're passionate about the work we want to do. We want to keep driving and doing that work. Clearly, as investors at some point need a liquidity event. Like, you can't wrap it up any other way than that.
Yeah.
And
well,
I don't know the answer.
You can, but it's not a popular method. You can wrap it up otherwise, but it's not a popular method.
Exactly. I don't know the answer. It's always, it depends. Acquisition, of course, if the right acquirer came along, of course, we're very open to that. Listing, I don't know. It depends. It really, really does depend. But right now, we are focused on continuing to deliver a really, really important product to as many customers in our market segment as we can. And I wake up every day with that as my very clear charter. And at some point, the exit will work itself out.
Yeah, look, I think that is actually a fantastic place to wrap it up, that finishing statement. And look, listeners, I think you really need to go back. This second half of this podcast was a masterclass from Jacqui Nelson when she dove into the strategy, how she went about going over to the States, just basically demonstrating that there was the market there, and then the application of that. There is some tips in there that I'm going to take right away out of this, and I think you should listen to it twice and do that yourself. So thank you so much, Jacqui, for joining us today. That was fantastic, and everything you've shared. It's been amazing watching this journey as you go along, and we're really looking forward to seeing you, keep hitting those goals, to getting out and dominating Europe as well, and seeing how it grows. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again, Jason.
Thanks, Tommy. And we'll keep cheering from the side, and you can say whatever you like to finish the episode off.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
I just want to say, if there's any cyber companies out there that, I certainly don't know anything, but all we can do is share our experiences and some of our war stories along the way. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm always happy to have a conversation and help out.
Yeah. And you only charge about $1,000 an hour, which is fantastic.
Easy.
So
it's
a bargain.
What a bargain.
Maybe just a stiff Campari and soda.
Okay, there you go. Maybe a double.
Double, yeah. All right. Well, thank you both. It's been a fantastic episode. And look, I'm just going to finish off on one of those nuggets you dropped, is that, don't be confused into being out there trying to sell a product. You are selling a solution to a problem a business has. And I think that reframing is incredibly powerful. So thank you again, both. And we'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thanks, Jacqui.
Thanks so much. See you later.